Red Alert podcast.
With Mike and Tony.
Okay, let's unpack this right now. We have got a stack of high-level intel assessments, and man, the message they are sending it's absolutely stark. What is happening in our hemisphere, in the Western Hemisphere, specifically in Venezuela, is the one single strategic nightmare American planners have spent 2 centuries trying to prevent.
200 years.
It is the Cuban Missile Crisis all over again, dude. But this time it's updated, it's mobile, it's worse.
That's the parallel, man. That is exactly why the alarm bells in Washington just went berserk. They didn't even hesitate. We're talking about a complete fundamental breach of our strategic insulation, the safety we thought we had.
It's gone.
The intelligence confirms it. Russia has positioned advanced mobile strategic missile systems on Venezuelan soil. This isn't some threat. It's not theoretical. It's a functional, deployable threat right now.
And when we say advanced, look, we mean systems that are concealed, they're highly mobile, and this is the kicker. They are capable of reaching targets deep inside the continental United States.
Deep inside. We're not talking about just Florida, bro.
No, we're talking about Texas, we're talking about the heartland. So the reaction from D.C., it wasn't a press release, it wasn't some speech. It was an immediate, silent shift to high alert.
Exactly. The source material we're looking at makes it super clear. There was no, political debate once the assets were confirmed. The very moment U.S. intelligence verified what these weapons were, where they were, and who was operating them.
Russian-trained personnel.
Russian-trained, Russian-equipped.
Yeah.
The response was a silent operational escalation. They put everybody on high alert. That tells you Washington views these things as an existential shift in the balance of power.
Yeah.
This is not a bargaining chip.
This is a gun to our head, and here's where it gets really crazy, because the start of a crisis this big, it doesn't look like a movie. It starts quiet. So how in the hell did we even find out?
It started with a satellite, just a routine sweep over Venezuela's interior, just looking for patterns, I guess, near military bases. And the analysts, they first catch a convoy moving.
Which is not unusual, right? A convoy is just a bunch of trucks.
Not at all. But then they saw the first clue, the smoke signal, you could call it. It was an anomalous heat signature.
Okay, anomalous heat signature. Break that down. Why is that the tripwire?
Well, every piece of military gear, a tank, a truck, whatever, it has a thermal profile, right?
Mm-hmm.
A heat fingerprint. The analysts know what a Venezuelan tank is supposed to look like to their thermal cameras. This signature, it didn't match anything Venezuela owns.
No freaking way.
It was too intense, too contained, and it was moving way too fast for anything in their inventory.
Yeah.
The guys watching the screens, they knew immediately. They were looking at high-spec foreign equipment.
So the alarms in some darkroom in Virginia just jumped from curiosity to, holy crap, what is that? And then they got the visual confirmation, the shapes and the shadows, as one of the reports calls it.
And that's the pivot point, man. Yeah. That is the moment the entire strategic landscape just collapsed. They zoomed in at the high-res imagery, and the team confirmed the outlines of transporter erector launchers, TLs.
Let's stop right there. The TLL. Because for you listening, you might just picture a big army truck. But a TEL is a specialist weapon. Why is seeing a TL specifically such a massive red flag?
Dude, it's the difference between seeing a bullet and seeing a sniper rifle. A TEL is designed for one thing and one thing only.
Yeah.
To carry, hydraulically lift, and fire a ballistic or a cruise missile.
And its mobility is its whole purpose.
Its entire strategic value. It's not like a fixed silo in the ground that you can track 24/7. A TEL can move, it can hide in the jungle, in the mountains, which Venezuela has everywhere, and it can fire from almost any spot. The second you confirm a TL, you confirm the intent to deploy a mobile, hard-to-track strategic strike weapon. It's built for surprise. This is some Call of Duty shit.
It really is. And the alarm didn't just stop there. It went to full scale when the second satellite pass confirmed the other pieces of the puzzle. They didn't just find the trucks, bro. They found the brains.
Precisely. A second pass revealed radar arrays. And not just any radar. They were shaped in the exact pattern of Russian mobile long-range targeting systems.
So this isn't for, air traffic control.
You kidding me right now? This is the stuff they pair with the Iskander-M missile, with the Kalibr cruise missiles. The report is classified on the exact missile type, but the capability is known. This radar is designed to calculate the precise launch data, the trajectory, the target. Without that radar, the TEL is just a really expensive truck with it.
It's a fully operational strike battery.
Locked and loaded.
So if we're looking at the threat here, given that these are mobile, they're modern Russian designs,
Yeah.
what kind of punch are we talking about?
Look, Based on what Russia deploys elsewhere, you got to assume it's either cruise missiles or short to medium-range ballistics. Now, if we just use the Iskander-M as an example, a system Russia uses all the time, it's hyper-accurate, it can carry massive conventional warheads, and here's the really scary part. It's often dual-capable.
Dual-capable, meaning it can carry a nuke.
Meaning it can carry a nuclear warhead. And that, right there, that single word, elevates this from a regional problem to a global strategic crisis.
Because Washington has to assume the worst-case scenario. You can't just hope it's conventional.
You can't.
Oh.
When you see a delivery vehicle like a TEL carrying a missile that could be nuclear, you must respond as if it is nuclear. The intel we have clearly says this ambiguity, this uncertainty, is one of Russia's most effective weapons here. It forces immediate maximal caution from the U.S.
It creases us.
It absolutely does. And then, man, the final nail in the coffin, the undeniable proof, the logistics. They caught a massive Russian air transport landing right outside Caracas.
The IL-76.
The Ilyushin IL-76. It's their workhorse for heavy military logistics. And what it dropped off, according to our sources, was more equipment, all of it covered in these specialized heat-resistant tarps.
Why the tarps? What's that about?
Deception, bro. Pure and simple. Those tarps are designed to screw with the same thermal signatures that flagged the convoy in the first place. They're trying to make it harder for our satellites to tell if the equipment is hot, meaning it just moved or is on, or if it's cold and static.
It's a professional military operation. This isn't some sloppy, quick delivery.
No way. This is a great power military playbook. And to tie it all up in a neat little bow, the cargo was guarded by Venezuelan forces, but the reports say they were wearing Russian-style combat gear and operating under strict Russian command.
So there's no ambiguity. Zero. It's Russian hardware, managed by Russian logistics, operating under Russian doctrine, all being hosted by a regime in Venezuela that hates our guts.
It's a done deal. Russia has established a strategic foothold in the Western Hemisphere. Period.
So, let's talk about what this means for the United States. For our grand strategy, we have to talk about the Monroe Doctrine. Why is this more than just some dusty old thing from a history book right now?
Because it's the foundation, man. It is the foundational pillar of American security for 200 years. The Monroe Doctrine from 1823, it basically said to Europe, hey, this hemisphere is our backyard, stay out.
Don't bring your wars and your armies over here.
Exactly. And over time, that became our core strategic assumption. No foreign military can position offensive weapons in this hemisphere. That's the deal.
It's the reason we haven't had to build a giant wall of missile defenses along the Gulf Coast. Our security was basically outsourced to two things, that doctrine and two really, really big oceans.
That's it. The doctrine is what allowed the U.S. military to become a global power projection force. We could focus our assets overseas because we just assumed the homeland was safe. Russia's deployment isn't just a violation of the doctrine, dude. It is a demolition of that core assumption. They're not testing it. They're showing us that it's dead.
And they did it with the kind of weapons that can shift the entire military balance overnight. Let's get specific. What's in range? If these things go operational, what are we talking about?
We are talking about targets that, I mean, they're the bedrock of American power. Naval bases all along the Gulf Coast and the East Coast. Norfolk, Virginia, the world's largest naval station. You've got bases in Florida that host entire fleets.
And it's not just military stuff.
No. This is what hits home. This is what you need to understand. We're talking energy infrastructure.
Oil refineries, gas pipelines.
Crucially, yes. All those hubs along the Gulf Coast. You hit those, you don't just cripple our military, you cripple our economy. You, listening right now, you feel that at the gas pump within days. Your Costco run suddenly costs twice as much. This threat isn't symbolic.
It's kinetic. These are the same tools Russia uses in Ukraine to just devastate hardened targets. That is what is sitting in Venezuela right now.
1,500 miles closer to your house than it was yesterday.
That is the ultimate proof that the oceans can't protect us anymore. So, okay. Let's try to get inside the Kremlin's head for a second. Use that classical realism filter from the reports, because from a purely cold strategic viewpoint, their move makes a terrifying kind of sense.
It's terrifying, but it is 100% rational if you're playing great power chess, which is all about fear, power, and geography. From Moscow's perspective, they see themselves as acting defensively.
Defensively? How the hell is putting missiles in our backyard defensive?
That's for reciprocity, bro. Reciprocal deterrence. They see NATO expanding east for decades, creeping closer and closer to their borders. They see us putting missile defense systems aegis ashore in Poland and Romania.
Systems they claim could be converted to offense.
Right, they believe that. Then they see Western weapons, our weapons, hitting deeper inside Russian territory in the Ukraine conflict, and they hear our politicians openly talking about weakening the Russian state for the long term.
So they feel cornered, they feel encircled, and their only move is to do the same thing to us, to apply the same pressure where it hurts us the most.
That is the strategic logic. That's the chess move. If they don't create a severe counter-pressure point in our hemisphere, they believe the U.S. will just keep pushing unopposed. So this deployment, it's a message. It's a very loud message designed to remind Washington that it is not untouchable.
It forces us to look in our own backyard for the first time in, what,
Yeah.
70 years?
It forces us to spend money and time and resources on defending the homeland in a way we haven't had to since the Cold War. And that right there, that fundamentally changes the rules of the game everywhere else in the world.
If Russia pulls this off, if they establish a long-term presence there, it means the U.S.
Can't operate with that same old swagger. That assumption of total security at home is gone. It completely shifts the global military math. It means every time the U.S. thinks about sending a carrier group to the Pacific or sending more troops to Europe, the guys in the Pentagon now have to look over their shoulder and ask, okay, but are we leaving the Gulf Coast vulnerable to the missiles in Venezuela?
And that diversion of resources, that's the win for Moscow.
That's the immediate strategic victory. And they got it without firing a single shot.
Now, the intel reports we have show that this high alert status in the U.S., it was way more than just a few phone calls. So give us a peek behind the curtain. What happened operationally?
The Pentagon's response was fast, and it was deep. First thing, Air Force readiness levels at key bases across the South and the Southeast, they were elevated. That means they shifted planes and pilots to shorter deployment cycles.
So guys who thought they had the weekend off were suddenly on standby.
Absolutely. The ability to scramble fighter patrols or launch spy planes was compressed from hours to minutes. We're talking about real people, real equipment, moving under a sudden, intense new reality.
And what about the Navy? The Caribbean is their turf.
U.S. Navy assets in the Caribbean and the South Atlantic, they immediately changed their patrol routes. The focus went from, routine anti-drug missions to aggressive anti-submarine and surface recon. They were trying to map out any potential routes Russia could use to reinforce Venezuela by sea or air.
Looking for the next IL-76 or maybe a ship?
Or sub? They were looking for everything. And the intelligence sharing, man, it went through the roof.
I bet.
Our big strategic radar systems, the ones that are always watching the globe for missile launches, they were immediately recalibrated. Their focus shifted dramatically south, prioritizing scans over the Caribbean, which is now officially a high-threat zone, and intel sharing with our allies in the region, Colombia, Brazil. It was massively intensified.
Because we need their eyes and ears on the ground.
We can't do it alone. This move made the crisis an immediate whole hemisphere security problem.
Let's get back to that idea of defensive offense. The Kremlin is forcing D.C. to think about home. They're convinced we surrounded them, so they're returning the favor. It's bringing the global fight right to our front door.
It's about forcing strategic parity. For decades, the U.S. had this massive asymmetrical advantage, right? We could pressure Russia on their doorstep, in the Baltics, in Ukraine, and there wasn't much they could do to us in return near our home.
Because geography.
Because geography. Well, now they have fundamentally challenged that asymmetry. The message is crystal clear. If you keep tightening the noose on our borders, we're going to tighten the noose on yours. It's pure Cold War deterrence, man, just with faster, deadlier, more mobile tech.
And this brings us back to Venezuela. Of all the places in the world, why there? Why is that country the perfect platform for this insane geopolitical power play?
Bro, it's perfect. Venezuela checks all the boxes for Moscow. Politically, the Maduro regime is a pariah. It's totally isolated. So when Russia flew those planes in, there was nobody in the region who could really pressure them to leave.
Nobody's going to stick their neck out for Maduro.
Nobody. And then you've got the economics. Venezuela is broke, and it's economically dependent on countries like Russia because of sanctions and their own, corruption. That debt gives Russia massive leverage. Maduro can't afford to say no.
And he doesn't want to say no. The regime is openly hostile to Washington.
He's an enthusiastic host. He's rolling out the red carpet for a system designed to threaten the United States. And for him, for Maduro, these Russian missiles are more than just a political statement. They are a physical shield.
The ultimate life insurance policy.
Absolutely. The source material hammers this point home. From Maduro's point of view, these missile systems are the ultimate guarantee that the U.S. can't try any regime change funny business. The presence of Russian strategic assets, guarded by Russian-trained guys, dramatically raises the cost of any potential American military action.
If we try a limited strike, or even send in a SEAL team, we risk hitting a Russian asset.
And triggering a direct, open war with Moscow, a nuclear power.
So the systems protect Russia's interests, and they guarantee Maduro stays in power. It's this interlocking security deal that makes them almost impossible to remove without a massive fight.
It creates an unacceptable risk of escalation for the U.S. The systems become a defensive umbrella for the very regime we want to see gone. It's a genius move, strategically speaking, a terrifying genius move.
And the geography, man, you touched on it. Russia is using Venezuela's landscape just like we use the geography of Eastern Europe.
The land itself is their ally for concealment. Venezuela's northern coast faces the Caribbean, and yeah, we have a big naval presence there, but the area is huge, it's complex, there are thousands of islands, coves, shipping lanes. Our surveillance is not airtight, there are gaps.
Big gaps. And the interior, the inland terrain, is a perfect place to hide these mobile launchers.
It is ideal for shoot-and-scoot tactics. The interior is full of mountains, dense jungles, low-visibility river valleys. A tail, being mobile, can drive into a valley, simulate a launch or do a real one, and then disappear back into the jungle before we can even get a satellite lock.
It makes them incredibly hard to find and even harder to kill.
It's designed for long-term survival. Maximize the threat, minimize the risk of being taken out. This means we are not talking about some temporary show of force here, dude. We're looking at the establishment of a long-term strategic foothold.
Designed to keep pressure on the United States for years.
That is the consensus among all the analysts. This is now a permanent feature of the great power competition map, unless the U.S. is willing to roll the dice on a very high-risk military option. That ghost of vulnerability is meant to hang over Washington forever.
Which leads us right to Washington's deepest fear. It's not just about the missiles, it's about the loss of that foundational assumption that our homeland is safe.
That lost assumption is what built the modern American military. We assumed we were safe at home, so we could spend trillions projecting power across the globe. If that assumption is gone, the U.S. has to immediately divert billions of dollars, entire fleets, massive air defense systems back to defending our own country.
Which is exactly what Moscow wants, a strategic drain.
A strategic drain on our resources and our attention. And even the possibility of these systems being there is enough to create devastating uncertainty for our war planners.
Okay, let's break down the physics of this, because the proximity is what makes it so deadly. Why does the warning time shrink from minutes to basically seconds?
It's about two things. The radar horizon and how fast the missile is. Radar sees in a straight line, right? But the Earth is curved. So if a missile is launched from the other side of the world, our radars will pick it up as it comes up over the curve.
Giving us some time.
Right. But if it's launched from the Caribbean, much, much closer, our radars won't see it until it's already much higher in the sky and much closer to its target. The Earth's curve blocks the view for longer.
So the window to react just collapses.
It collapses. For a launch from, say, Russia, we might have 20, maybe 30 minutes of warning time. From Venezuela, depending on the missile, that warning time could be as little as 6 to 10 minutes.
6 minutes. 6 minutes to confirm the launch is real, figure out where it's going, determine if it's nuclear, and get a decision from the president on how to respond. That's no time at all. No freaking way.
That collapse is the path to nuclear war.
Yeah.
Even when nobody wants it. When warning time shrinks like that, the whole decision-making process becomes incredibly fragile. Every glitch on a radar screen, every flock of birds, every atmospheric anomaly gets magnified.
And this is the ultimate danger, right? The fear of miscalculation, when speed and panic override good information.
Exactly. Our whole missile defense strategy is built on having enough time to confirm data from multiple sources. When that window is gone, leaders are forced to make world-ending decisions based on fuzzy pictures. They might think an enemy training exercise is a real first strike, or a sensor malfunction looks like an incoming warhead.
And both sides, fearing the other guy is about to launch, get their finger on the trigger.
It becomes a hair-trigger situation. This dynamic, driven purely by geography and speed, is how accidental wars start.
So the most insane part of all of this is that Russia doesn't even have to fire a single missile to win. They're just being there is the weapon.
It is the weapon. It forces us to divert our best assets, to accept this crippling uncertainty, and most importantly, to behave differently on the world stage. They achieve their goal just by parking those trucks in the jungle. It slows us down. It makes us focus on ourselves.
The reports compare it to a chess move. like placing your queen deep in your opponent's territory. The threat itself changes the whole board without a single piece being taken.
And that new board geometry leads us straight to the no-win dilemma that Washington is staring at right now. Every possible path forward seems to carry an insane risk of turning this crisis into a shooting war.
All right, let's go through the options the analysis lays out. The first and most common, U.S. tool sanctions. We hit Venezuela or Russia with economic pain.
Worthless. Utterly worthless in this situation. Sanctions are a political tool for long-term pressure. You cannot sanction a missile launcher out of a valley, bro. This is a physical security problem, and sanctions can't solve it. Maduro needs those things for his own survival. He doesn't care about sanctions.
Okay, option 2. Diplomacy. We talk them into taking the missiles home.
You kidding me? Diplomacy is a joke here. For Maduro, those systems are his life insurance against us. Why would he ever give them up? He'd have to trust us, which he never will, and Russia would have to get something of equal strategic value in return. What are we going to give them? Poland. It's not happening.
Which brings us to the military option, the kinetic option. We send in the jets and we just blow them up.
And that's the highest risk, most disastrous path possible. Even with a perfect strike, you run a massive risk of killing Russian soldiers operating those TLs.
And the second a U.S. bomb kills a Russian soldier.
It's game on. It's a direct, hot war between two nuclear-armed powers. The crisis goes from a competition to a global conflict in a heartbeat. The guys in D.C. know that line cannot be crossed.
Okay, so, final option. We just ignore them. We pretend it didn't happen and just live with it.
Strategically impossible. If we ignore them, we are officially admitting that the Monroe Doctrine is dead. We are formally accepting the permanent strategic vulnerability of the United States homeland. And you cannot be a global superpower if you're constantly worried about defending your own coastline from a peer adversary.
So, every option is a bad option. Every path. Sanctions, diplomacy, military, ignoring it. It all leads to either danger or strategic defeat. This is how great power crises actually start. Not with some big declaration of war, but with the quiet arrival of a few special trucks.
The whole crisis is about geometry. Russia has successfully erased the geographical distance that made us safe, and they forced us into a corner where every move we make is magnified by the risk of immediate high-speed escalation. They're actively reshaping American vulnerability.
It's just a terrifying situation. You've got two great powers, both of them absolutely convinced they're the ones acting defensively, both convinced the other guy's pushing them into a corner.
And both are operating under this belief that if they show any weakness, any hesitation, the other side will immediately take advantage of it. That is the most dangerous setup you can have. It's a landscape primed for miscalculation. Because of one radar glitch, one misheard command, it could trigger something that neither side actually wanted.
The history we relied on for 200 years, dude, it changed the day those planes landed in Caracas. The insulation from the oceans is gone. We are now living in a world where a fight on the other side of the planet is directly reflected in the defense of our own country.
The bottom line for you, for everyone listening, is that you have to be vigilant. You have to understand that the quiet stuff, the re-aimed radars, the ships changing course, those are the real signs of how serious this is. We've moved from a what-if threat to a real, functional, long-term problem right here in our own hemisphere.
The final thought for you to chew on is this. The geography that defined American power for 2 centuries is strategically dead. So what does being a global power even look like for the U.S. when our home is no longer a safe zone? What's the new price of leadership when deterrence requires living with the permanent, terrifying risk of proximity?
Wake up, America. This is not a drill. The oceans are not our walls anymore. This is why you need to be vigilant. This is why we protect the Second Amendment. They are reshaping American vulnerability as we speak.
You heard him. Wake up. Share this before it's too late.